The Big E Sports Show.
Yeah, we got it going on,
The fastest hour in sports entertainment. We don't just talk about the headlines. We bring you some of the most engaging and colorful guests each and every episode for your listening pleasure. Now, without further ado, here's your host, Elissa Walker Campbell.
Hey, we are back and bigger than ever. Elissa Walker Campbell. I want to welcome you into the Big E Sports Show, the fastest 1 hour in sports talk. And you can find us on multiple media platforms online. We have officially expanded our territory. You can check us out on YouTube. We'd love to connect with our listening audience on Twitter at eRadioSports. And why not send us an email at info@eradiosports.com. We've got an incredible lineup over the next 60 minutes. Leading off will be Spencer Tillman from Fox Sports. He's going to weigh in on all the conference championship conversation. Chris Dishman, he's the head coach at Texas Southern, will be joining us. And to round things off, as far as our guest, it is college basketball Hall of Fame coach Lon Kruger. And here to help us each and every week is my executive producer and frequent contributor for Athlon Sports, and that is Craig Larson. Hello, Craig.
Hey, E, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. It has been a fast and furious week. We've got a lot to dive into when we talk about the college football landscape. And just what were your takeaways from Tuesday night and the committee? I mean, what did they get right and what did they get wrong?
Boy, great question. I think they got a few things right, a few things wrong. I think the biggest area and what's been really revealed here, and you know this full well, wins and losses are not equally weighted the same, right? What happens, for example, if on Saturday Georgia loses badly to Texas? I mean, are you still going to put them into this playoff field? Whereas conversely, here's SMU in perfect prime position. Their only loss of the season, occurred all the way back on the 6th of September to BYU. People don't even remember that game. And they don't recall it because it happened 3 months ago. So it's going to be really interesting. It's kind of like that old Janet Jackson song, "What Have You Done For Me Lately?"
Yeah.
You simply cannot lose games late in the year. And so there's all this debate and discussion about the Hurricanes, and they're feeling slighted over a 3-loss Alabama team qualifying. But listen, Miami, you've lost 2 of your last 3 games. And again, you don't want to lose late. If you're trying to vie and compete and land in the 12-game field. I think what's going to be fascinating, and I'm sure the suits at CBS and Fox aren't particularly thrilled with the fact that the college football selection show on Sunday is going to take place directly opposite of these networks' pregame NFL shows ahead of the Week 14 NFL slate. I think it's just going to be fascinating to see these games play out on Saturday. And then in the wee hours of Sunday morning, that selection committee fusing together the field and the final pairings of the 12-team composition. I think it's just going to be incredible.
Well, it certainly is fascinating to see how all this is going to play out. And there was a lot of debate on Tuesday night after the rankings were revealed. You know, I got my eye on some of these teams on the bubble, and we're looking forward to kicking off our program with Spencer Tillman from Fox Sports because he's going to weigh in on all of this. Spencer, it's great to have you on the program. Welcome in to the Big E Sports Show.
My pleasure to be with you, Elissa. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, first and foremost, let's just step back and what have we learned from this college football season? Because it's been compelling to watch, especially now that the realignment dust has finally settled.
Well, I think what you've done is basically push back the gnashing of teeth and the angst and all that other stuff from a third position to maybe the 13th, 14th, or 15th position who qualifies, right? So not a lot has changed from that standpoint. I do believe that you satisfy the immediate peril of having a Florida State or an automatic champion of a division, a conference, being left out like they were last year, which I think is one of the greatest atrocities and exposed the system for its weaknesses, one of its many weaknesses that's slowly beginning to be changed right now. But I think last year, to have won an ACC championship, to be undefeated and not be able to pay that off. I think because of a brand affiliation or association that's had a little bit more patina to it than Florida State's did last year, and that would be Alabama leapfrogging them, much like Ohio State did TCU back in 2014.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a tragedy. So we don't need that to happen. And I think the way you cure that is you go from 12 to 16, and then that nullifies all that problem.
A 12-team playoff format. There certainly was a lot of debate following Tuesday night's rankings and reveal. There's going to be teams fighting for that final spot, teams on the bubble. What do you think will be that deciding factor?
Well, I think, we live in a world of images and impressions, right? Most people aren't interested in pulling on the veneer away to look at what's substantive. And that's why I think the committees are problematic, because they're subjective, right? They're going to see things. And unfortunately, it's like Nick Nolte said in that famous movie, you may be too young to remember this, but 48 Hours, there was a line in it where he said, the eyes of justice may be blind, but when it comes to money, occasionally she peaks. And I think that's what happened last year. And that's what happened. It could happen this year. You get a team like SMU who's going to, if they win the championship or not, their conference championship could get left out. But no team has had a more profound impact, and maybe withstanding Texas in their first year in a new conference. I mean, Texas obviously will be number one, but SMU's production in the ACC to me has been profound. I would hate to see them left out. There's some other teams that could be on the bubble, but I think right now they got most of it right. I don't think we have much room for controversy outside of Alabama.
Spencer, Alabama jumps ahead of Miami in the college football playoff rankings. Did the Crimson Tide deserve to be in the top 12 of the college football playoff bracket?
No, they're an example of what I'm talking about, right? It's a brand. Brand awareness is what's going to, in a world where everything is equal. The college football world is driven still, even to this advanced stage, by tradition. It was the currency of the game 100% for many years, but that started to change. And so we're at a point now where maybe the vestiges of that are fading a little bit, but it's still profound. If you're Alabama, you're 1 year removed or a couple of years removed from Nick Saban's era, you're going to get the nod over a team that doesn't have that. Listen, Miami's kind of been in the doldrums. When I was at Oklahoma back in the day, they were certainly on top of the mountain with Jimmy Johnson and company.
Oh, yeah.
But times have changed, and so they're now going to regain some credibility. But I think right now they would lose that battle with a team that, like an Alabama, that has that marquee name.
Hey, we are so glad you're with us. I'm Elissa Walker Campbell, the Big East Sports Show. We are going one-on-one with Fox Sports' very own Spencer Tillman. He was an All-American running back for the Oklahoma Sooners, won a national championship in '85. Let's talk about some of the tradition. Was it disappointing to say goodbye to one of college's best rivalries? And that's what I'm talking about is Bedlam with Oklahoma State. I mean, any chance that they'll bring that back at some point?
Well, maybe kind of like what Texas and Texas A&M have done.
Yeah.
I think that's really kind of cool. And I'm kind of an old veteran when it comes to losing those traditions. I've had some of my best games, Elissa, with Nebraska and Oklahoma and the original Big Red of the North and the South. And so we got a jump start on everybody years ago when they seceded and went to the Big Ten Conference. So it's tough when you lose that tradition because, once again, tradition is the currency of the game, or at least it has been historically, and it's still important. I don't mean to suggest that it's gone away, but when you start losing some of that, for a guy like me who was born and raised in the state of Oklahoma, that loses a lot. That a lot is lost when you cannot leverage those situations. And a lot of people don't remember those great rivalries. I was talking to one of my young broadcasting associates last week in our final game, and the idea came up of, hey, what were some of the great games you played for? I said, do you remember the game of the century? And he just kind of got quiet. And here's somebody who does it for a living, right? He didn't remember the 71. I mean, not that he should. He probably wasn't even born. Didn't remember the 71 Nebraska game. But the point from a history standpoint, everybody should know that game of the century, Nebraska, Oklahoma. Nebraska beat Oklahoma that year. And it was a profound thing. But when you start to lose that, I think the game suffers a great deal.
Spencer Tillman with us on the Big East Sports Show, and the countdown is on. Let's get everyone ready for the SEC Championship, Georgia, Texas. What are you looking at in this particular matchup, and who do you trust in this one?
Well, I don't know if I trust as much as I have confidence in the coaching ability and the path that Steve Sarkisian has really taken to get to where he is right now. With his quarterback, he's done a wonderful job managing that situation with Manning behind him and keeping that kind of calm. I'm really good friends with Archie Manning and the family, and I
Uh-huh.
know that hadn't been easy to manage that situation. But such is the nature of the game that we're in right now. You've got to be able to keep everybody happy. And Steve has done a wonderful job of getting our little Arch in there when he's had an opportunity to in game scenarios where he could. I just think that when you look at the roster of coaches on Texas's coaching staff, it's basically Alabama light. They've got like 4 or 5 different coaches that were at Alabama, and if there's anybody that could beat Kirby Smart, it's that group. Kirby obviously gets his credibility and his chops were earned with Nick Saban early on. Of course, he ended up beating Alabama twice before he left and got out of there before Nick did, and so it's going to be formidable. But I just think right now Texas may have an edge. Georgia's shown their vulnerability this year, and I just think that Texas right now is in a good position to do some really credible things.
Let's have you weigh in on the Texas defense. They know how to attack, and they don't allow a lot of points.
Yeah, that's always the big deal. It's so cliche to say that, defense wins championships, so that's absolutely right. I mean, they're an elite defense. I think you saw that consistently. And for me, I look at one area of a team to define whether or not they're going to have success long term. I'm always looking at special teams because you're going to have your most aggressive guys on that. And increasingly, you will see teams use their frontline players in certain key situations on special teams. Alabama and maybe Texas and maybe 2 or 3 other teams. Iowa State is another one that does it. They do this a lot. They'll use frontline players on their special teams unit. I think right now where Texas is, they're as good a defensive team and what's athletic at their linebacker position in particular than anybody in the country. And I just think that they've got all the assets that are necessary where the college game is right now to thrive in a situation where they are in the first round of the playoffs.
Okay, we previewed Georgia, Texas. We got to talk about your former team, our Oklahoma Sooners, and their starting quarterback, Jackson Arnold, entered the transfer portal after 2 seasons. What was your reaction? And Spencer, were you surprised?
No, listen here. I'm not surprised. I think whether it's Dylan Gabriel who leaves for Oregon, Jackson Arnold, the coaches are only the players and the teams by extension are only as good as the coaches that are coaching them. If you go back and just keep it in the Oklahoma realm and look at Kyler Murray when he came out, if the guy who doesn't coach him to a Heisman Trophy is not his coach or someone who drafts him out, I don't think you necessarily are going to get the kind of success that you have in the NFL if the coach just like a Cliff Kingsbury, who is familiar with the style of play of a guy that stature playing the quarterback position, where it's totally antithetical to what the prototypical quarterback would be. You need somebody who understands that. So for me, when Oklahoma starts to show struggles on offense, I'm not surprised that you start to see the elite quarterback start to leave because your future is going to be tied to the person in the position to take credit for your success. And usually that is the offensive coordinator. So if you're a young 4 or 5 star quarterback, you better go someplace where that offensive coordinator has a strong reputation. And Oklahoma struggled sans the time when, they've lost their number 1 to USC. That's a
Yeah.
problem for them.
Okay, so let's have you weigh in on the newest addition to the coaching staff, and you're talking about the offensive coordinator, Washington State's Ben Arbuckle. He's a young guy, 29, signs a 3-year deal. So, Spencer, what does he bring to the table? What do you know about him?
Well, I know a little bit about him, and I, being at Fox last year before the Pac-12 disbanded, we had that conference, and it was just a special group to be around. Done a number of games at Washington State over the years, and going all the way back to past Mike Leach's time there. They have a similar style. There's a patina of the wide open style offense that Oklahoma is used to running, whether it was with Heupel when he was there, Mike Leach when he was there, Lincoln Riley when he was there. Some of the same tenets you're going to see here. But at 29, they're banking on the fact that he has that energy. He has that understanding of the dynamics of what makes for an effective offense, and he's going to have the energy required to iterate from week to week to put out a new system. And that's what happens with a lot of guys. You see it at the University of Houston, and they look good for maybe a week or two. And you even see it on the professional level. If you get a guy that's a hot shot and he has great success early, the only reason he's having success is because nobody knows a lot about him. But today they can iterate much faster. They've got AI at their disposal. These coaches can iterate and find out exactly exactly what it is that you're attempting to do, and they can find solutions quicker. So you've got to be smarter than they are and be able to iterate yourself offensively. And to the extent I think that he's going to be able to be fine. I just think that you've got to be able to do it in one of the toughest environments in college football, that is the SEC.
Hey, it is a tough environment, but it sounds like you like the hiring of Ben Arbuckle in Norman, yes?
Yeah, I like young, energetic guys that understand.
Sure.
And he's a technique guy, and he's also a technology guy. I'm a big proponent of that. I do a lot of work with folks in the NFL on analytics and the companies that actually design the analytics programs, and those things have to get those right. You have to ask the right questions. And from an analyst standpoint, I will always walk in the door, and the first thing I want to know from a coordinator: are you a formula guy or are you a feel guy? And what I mean by that is, I'm just asking them, do you go by the book, your first 12, first 15, first 20 plays or whatever? Or do you allow the context of the situation to dictate what you're able to call? And what that coordinator tells me is going to give me a snapshot into the window of their mind. If you tell me you're a formula guy, you're going to have problems if you get punched in the mouth and you're down 14 points. If you're a feel guy, or maybe classify yourself as a hybrid, a little bit of both, I tend to trust those guys more because it means they're not stuck in a corner someplace. If they do get down or get off schedule, they have the confidence and creativity and the trust in their players and the coaching skill to put them in a position to still have success despite being in an ideal situation. Those are the kind of guys that I'm looking for to have success in this league.
You bet. Well said. Spencer Tillman with us just a few more minutes on Fox Sports. You can check him out. And, one more thing about the SEC. Have you ever seen a time where it was just the depth in this conference? I mean, there's just so many good teams from top to bottom.
That's a great observation, Elissa. And I think what you're seeing is the balancing out of college football. And I've been preaching this since I left CBS. And I told folks, I think it was Thomas Freeman wrote a book called The World is Flat. And that's not just for the broader world at all. It's for everything about the competition level and access to what allows us to get better is becoming available to more people than ever. And if you're willing to work hard, you can level that playing field a lot faster than you could a long time ago when you had the domineering stretches of Oklahoma and Alabama and some of these Clemson teams in more recent years who have been able to dominate for longer stretches of period of time. But the turnover is going to be much faster now. You see the dynamics with NIL and some of the transfer portals allowing teams to go from 0 to 100 much faster. So I believe the landscape is flatter than ever. It's going to mean shorter cycles for head coaches. If you don't have success, you're going to be exposed faster than you ever could have been under previous time. So that brings with it a lot of expectations and a lot of opportunities as well. So I'm liking the dynamic of it. The chum is in the water. These guys have got to respond to it. And I think also the pressures on chancellors and presidents and ADs to get their picks right. Otherwise, they're going to be in a turnstile trying to find leadership.
Okay, it is week 15 of the college football season. Looking forward to all the conference game. Is there one in particular, as we get ready to wrap up, one in particular that you've got your eye on?
No, I'm looking at that ACC matchup, and here's why. The
Okay.
reason why I think I like it is because of the first year team, and will they get snubbed in some way if they don't win that championship game? I think it would be a travesty if they do, because I think they've earned it. I want to see Boise State get in there and do some things that are cool. Genty, having called 2 games of his this year, has been as good a running back as anybody that's out there. So there's just a lot of sub narratives there that are compelling, but I think SMU and Boise State, no mystery that they're teams that are, kind of what my broadcast partner Tim Brando used to call flies in the ointment. They've earned their chops right now, and they deserve it,
Yeah, good stuff. Fox Sports, Spencer Tillman, true pleasure to catch up with you, and we look forward to another discussion here in 2025. Enjoy all the games and safe travels.
Thank you. You too.
You bet. Stick around. Much more coming your way. The Big E Sports Show.